hilarious. When I first logged on to, I saw some guy in the background like see that I was there. You just like shut the door. It's hilarious.
Yeah, that's my son. Okay. And we're back with the show. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly appreciate you being part of the broadcast here today. And it's that time again. It's time for some more Pop Talk. So that's right, some Pop Talk with Rob McCallum.
Crossfire. It's Cosmic Crossfire, I thought.
Cosmic Crossfire. I like Pop Talk better.
Yeah, that's the problem. I'll tell you what. I'll give you a few more minutes to wake up, and then you can see where we're at.
Pop Talk. All right, Cosmic Roundtable. Doesn't have the same ring to it.
Cosmic Crossfire.
Cosmic Crossfire, indeed. Fair enough. All right. So I'm here with, once again, my good friend. He is the man, the myth, the legend. He is the director of Nintendo Quest. Sorry, didn't want
to. Dramatic pause. Build the suspense.
I know. Tell me about it. But that's, I had to do it because of the noises and all that. It's Rob McCallum, my good friend. He's also announced a little side project, I think, that just came up recently that he didn't tell me any forewarning about. So I'm kind of, I kind of hurt about what's going on. So but it's always great to have you back on the program, my friend.
Yeah, good to be here. Got lots of news topics to cover today, and a few other things going on in the old land of my career, I suppose.
I remember a time it seemed like every other week or almost virtually every week there would be something new in Rob's life that would be changing, or he'd be announcing and popping up with this announcement. He did make a major announcement this week as far as a new project that he's undergoing, but still I got to tell you, man, you got to slow down, man. You got to say when is when, man. You got so much going on.
Slowed down. This is the first kind of project that I've announced in any capacity since Power of Grayskull way back in January of 2016.
All right, fair enough. But still, it seems like you're juggling so much.
Well, maybe Box Art, I guess, was right around the same time. There is definitely lots of juggling. But, this is about picking quality, not quantity, so...
Fair enough, indeed. So we're going to have more of the Cosmic Crossfire right now with Rob McCallum taking the reins and, picking out pop culture subjects that he likes right now that wants us to share and discuss on today's program. So, Rob, have at it, my friend. What have we got on the docket for today?
Got a handful of news items. We're recording a little bit later than we usually do, so there's a little bit more to pick from in the news, and I'm sure you and Josh may have covered some of these in some capacities. Whether our viewers have had a chance to listen to them, I don't know, but definitely check it out on any of the podcast networks that we're on, or iTunes, or if you're listening to us on one of those, there is bonus material always available on iTunes. Let's get to the first item, and that is a place that helped define me growing up, that spoke to legions of people my age and others, will no longer exist in the coming weeks and days and years as they begin to liquidate their stock and plan for Chapter 11, and that is one of the biggest toy store chains in the world, Toys R Us.
I don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid. There's a million toys at Toys R Us.
And this is what I did. I'm bankrupt. No one's buying. They don't even visit anymore.
Well,
we're going to have to shut everything and close down our store.
There you go. Indeed. We did talk about it on the show recently as far as the impending doom and death that is Toys R Us. That's just very sad to see. I think both you and I are, it's just one of those sad reminders of maybe that we're getting older, that things are changing in our world and evolving. And sometimes you're part of things that in your life that don't evolve and change with it. I actually was a general manager one time for a company known as Montgomery Ward. It didn't evolve. It didn't change. And unfortunately, because it didn't, My job as a GM there was short-lived because it closed down and it didn't get to evolve with the times. And
Well, I had
with
this talk with Morgan Lander, the front woman of Kitty. Recently, we were not necessarily talking about Toys R Us, but we were talking about related like subjects, and she eloquently put, "This is kind of the curse of living. Not everything gets to stay on. Things get taken away from you. Things change, and they fall to the wayside, and you continue going on. So businesses are obviously a huge victim of that. But the question,
Same
go
here
ahead.
with as I've said before as well on the show with Josh. I also ran Great Game Crazy, so and that bit the dust because of its parent company Hollywood Video bit the dust along with its main competitor Blockbuster Video along with it. It's just the way if you don't evolve, you lose. Correct?
I guess, yeah. I mean, you like to think that the traditional way of doing something will always stand the test of time, but I guess buying habits in that bottom line and those numbers are going to be the ultimate dictating factor. I think it's why you see a rise in things like free to play gaming, which I could go on and on about, like we talked about on our last episode when we talked about piracy and movies and how to get content and the value of that kind of stuff with cord cutting and where people have to go and what's a fair price for something like HBO. But in the same realm, what is the value of going into a store today, be it Toys R Us or be it Walmart or wherever? What is the value of going into these buildings? And is it worth additional cost to have that merch on the shelf, or should everything be online? Should everything be click to deliver? What do you think?
Well, in our day and age, with easier is better, when it's taught to us that it's so easy to get anything that you want with, like you said, virtual click of the button, uh, to the individuals that are out there, maybe that are younger or maybe even that are in our age, whatnot. Maybe it's just something that is now an accepted way of life of just going to an Amazon, a Walmart.com, a Target.com, a what have you, eBay or what have you, and just ordering straight from there and not even worrying about going and having that experience of touching, of feeling, of experiencing anything that's out there. I know Josh, as a younger member of the audience, also reflected his personal feelings of loss because he did enjoy that experience of going out and physically touching and physically seeing and also seeing what else is there in those stores that he might be interested in. But that art and that experience seems to be lost on consumers our age and even younger. And it looks like going forward, you will see this for a lot of brick and mortar industries, and a lot of brick and mortar retailers, excuse me, like for instance, GameStop has struggled for a long time now to try and continually find itself viable in today's age. Also, as well, Best Buy and so many others that have, maybe with the push either which way in the wrong direction, could follow in the same path as Toys R Us as well.
But what do you think the value of going to a store today is? We're seeing more and more closures. We're seeing more and more emphasis on online sales. Amazon has now dwarfed Walmart in terms of online retail. Sites like PayPal and eBay are still doing incredible numbers. Online commerce has never been better. It almost looks like it's continuing to increase and go up. What is the value of going into a store today?
Obviously, whatever it is, it's decreased over the course of time and becomes less and
Well, that's
less.
why I'm asking today, like just today, in our present day and age, not 10 years ago, not 5 years ago, today, what is the value of going into a store?
Obviously, it's not very much to a lot of people because, like you said, it's now becoming so much easier to buy and purchase and see things directly from a click of the button on your smartphone or your computer that you don't really have to. People are really ready to give up those experiences. I mentioned before with Josh that a lot of retailers over the course of years always have played a deadly game. And one of my experience in retail is that a lot of these retail entities have played this game where they bank so much on 2 to 2.5 months out of the year during the Christmas and holiday shopping season that they literally will put everything that they can into it so they can get so much out of it. So it feeds the rest of the 9.5, 10 months of the year for their entire, livelihood. So to see this happen to someone like Toys R Us, it shows you that the experience of people going out and buying in today's current value is there's not much to it because people are willing to give up all that experience and all that shopping, and they'll tell you, oh, I don't want to deal with the headache and the traffic and all the, fight the crowds and whatnot, blah, 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 blah. Well, obviously that means that they do not value the experience of going out and shopping for things as much as other people once did, even 10 years ago, let's say.
Well, there are certain things that you'll never be able to get online that require you to leave your house and go out there and partake. And these are essential services stuff like hospitals and to lesser degrees, probably schools with the online learning community that there is. Banks, similar, have an online component. But I think we're always going to see physical presences of these things that are going to require people to go to. It's going to be a pretty bleak looking world if the only thing outside of our house is our workplace and institutions. Because we're seeing the commercial sector completely erode for the sake of convenience instead of service. An in-person service experience is being completely eliminated, and I think it's pretty sad. I wish people would go out and support small businesses, your local retailers that are trying to fight the good fight for, like what you said, 2.5 months of being in the black that make up for, 9 months of being in the red. So,
Well, we
Toys R
talk
Us is
basically
just a microcosm for everybody else. If it can happen to them, it can happen to anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And you and I both know retailers that are out there, and we've on a personal level that spend a good deal of their time, in their stores, but they also go ahead and spend a great deal of their time and consideration taking care of a lot of online ordering as well. And we know how valuable on a personal level that is to their business now. And it just seems to be a way of life a lot of people are now almost taking for granted.
Yeah, it's pretty sad, and I'd like to see it kind of turn around the other way. I don't pretend to understand the economics of running a retail business or an operation of that sort. I know how easy it is to do online things, but I don't always think easy is the best way to go, just because one can facilitate that. So the whole point to this discussion is really to support your local merchants out there so that you can have those experiences, so you can share those experiences and, not give in to the pressure of just clicking buttons and getting that pellet, delivered to your mouth because you push the right thing in the right order.
Well, always told you, and I've told other people that I truly treasure going out into the shopping experience, especially obviously during the holiday shopping season of Black Friday, but also all year round. I've had no problems and still enjoy the experience of going out and physically touching and physically going out and buying things, because I remember when I was a kid and my dad took me and my mom took me to the stores, and I just have those good memories of going to these retail locations, which obviously no longer exist in many cases, that I just have those fond memories, and I'm hoping that my kids will be able to share those as well down the road.
It wouldn't be a cosmic crossfire if we did not talk about Star Wars in some capacity.
Okay.
There has been lots of little breadcrumbs about this Han Solo film that Ron Howard is now directing. And one of his recent Twitter posts was simply captioned "spicy." And it seems that the Han Solo film is likely to feature the infamous Kessel Run.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that before I go into a long tangent?
Well, I'll make it short since you're going to have a long tangent. I think it's something that has to be a natural, although it doesn't sound like, there has to be something beyond what has been described in the Star Wars lore. The Kessel Run, obviously the game that with obviously, as far as winning the Millennium Falcon, and that's great and all that. And you'll get to see all that alluded to within the comments that Ron Howard has made. But hopefully, there will be substantially more to this movie than just what has been heard or spoken about so much in Star Wars lore.
Well, this is the problem. Like, are we just going to see pictures to stuff that we already know about that's organized in a nice, coherent screenwriting fashion and structure? I don't need to see the Kessel Run. This is something and information I already know. I'm not challenging it. I don't need to see it take place. I accept it for what it is. He did it in 12 parsecs, whatever that means. Let me visualize what that is in my head. Let it remain a little undefined so that it's a little bit more magical. We've talked about this before. The more that you define in the Star Wars saga, the less mystery and magic does this thing hold. Less is more, people. We saw this the first time when it was Obi-Wan turning to Luke saying, I served with your father in the Clone Wars. Then we get the Clone Wars. And boy, did that really take out the magic of what Obi-Wan and Anakin were like when they were hanging out together, and what the Clone Wars were. We don't even know what that was at the time. It could have been anything. Were there clone Jedis? Were there clone, something else out there? And then they had to start defining everything. And the more that they defined, the more that they got in trouble, because the rules kind of got complicated, and it lost that mystery and that magic that makes Star Wars so intoxicating, because they started grounding everything in these harsh definitions that were not easy to wrap your head around. They took out these absolutes that they said were there that we all just kind of bought into, because that's all that mattered. We needed to know this so that we could understand the next thing. You start filling in those gaps the wrong way. You start caring less about it because you can't fall in love with it, because everything is given to you. There's no processing of the imagination. Everything is served up. It's the pellets again. Here you go. I'm giving you exactly what you want, exactly what you want. I'm not making your imagination work to understand why this character is awesome. Han Solo's a bit of a rogue. He's a one-man show. Why? Here's his long list of, things that he's known for. Oh, what do they all mean? And you start thinking about what it is and what the reputation of this guy that is bringing with him. You don't need to see it all to believe it. It takes away from why the character is so good. And this is the problem with the origin films. They start to over-defining why we love these characters when we love them already. If we love them already, why are you working so hard to make me love them more?
Next thing you'll see is Donald Glover, and his maneuver at the Battle of Danab.
Yeah, well, and that's just it, right? Like, again, we don't need to see more about Lando. And I keep going back to it. Give us something that isn't connected to the Skywalker saga. If you want me to care about something new in Star Wars, don't go back to the well and keep pumping the same water, because it's going to taste like water, and it's probably going to be tainted because you're digging way too deep. Digging way too deep on that.
Like I said, it's going to be something that, yes, we know this, yes, we know this, but that's the problem. It's not always playing and catering to the way Star Wars fans, really hardcore Star Wars fans, or even those very familiar with the lore, want to see, because they want to see something outside, because like you said, they're already very familiar with it. They're catering to a much wider audience, and maybe they're not as familiar with those aspects of the Star Wars lore and universe. So they're wanting to sprinkle that in to make it seem familiar, so it will drag everybody in who's either very familiar or even not so familiar with the franchise, and bring that familiarity. Oh yeah, I remember them talking about that in Star Wars and all that. So
everybody's familiar with this. You're not filling in the gaps for anybody, because all you're going to do is make that moment later on in the other films, if they do get hooked with this one, play less significantly.
Like I said, I agree with you on that. They don't have to fill in all the gaps and make dot all the I's and cross all the T's, but they plan on doing so anyways. And whether or not that's the right decision, I don't know. I mean, this particular movie has had its more than a share of trouble. I don't have the highest of hopes for it, which is pretty disappointing. And I haven't had that kind of bad feeling about an upcoming Star Wars movie since the 1990s. Sorry, Jay, but since the 1990s.
Well, I mean, I guess the only consolation is we do get episode 8 this year. right? And then 6 months later, we get the Han Solo movie. So,
And then in 2019, we're going to be getting the actual episode number 9. Is that correct?
yeah.
Okay. So, but will it still come out in May? It still looks like it's still going to, but I don't know. I kind of have a feeling they still may delay it. Something may happen in post-production that may cause it to be delayed. I was surprised that they haven't done that already, because they've already done it with episode 9 not coming out in May, and that's been pushed back to December.
Yeah, we'll see, because if it's going to come out in May, we would likely see a trailer for it with episode 8. So time will tell, and we're supposed to get the next episode 8 trailer sometime in October. I hear as well. So we will see how all that unfolds. Less is more. I get less interested in everything that's going on with these Star Wars spin-offs, and even episode 8 and 9.
And that's a shame, because you've had and held an interest in the Star Wars franchise for so long.
Yeah, and I'm not I mean, I'm still gonna go to them, so maybe they're winning anyways, but it's just, I don't know, I think it's lazy. I think they could be much more inventive than that.
But it sounds more like, for you, it's an obligation than it is a choice.
No, I mean, as a filmmaker, I think it's kind of important to see these films, to be, in the here and now and vernacular, even if it's what to avoid to do. And I just think it's a bad screenwriting choice. So sometimes you learn more from the films that don't work than the ones that do.
I'm sure we'll find that out very soon in the near future. At least
By the way,
Han Solo film is anything to crow about.
By the way, speaking of films that work, Stephen King's It, which has been storming the box office, I recently discovered, after seeing it last weekend, the first film I've seen in a very long time in the theater, that it was shot in several of the locations that Unearthly was shot in, which is pretty neat for everybody out there that is interested in my sci-fi action adventure horror movie, Unearthly. 99 cents on Vimeo. Own it today. Check it out. Shot in the same places where it was shot. So those lovely gorges and forest settings and sceneries, same locations.
What a coinky dink.
I was like, man, that stuff looks really familiar. And sure enough, it was. It was. Patreon raises $60 million in funding. For those that don't know what Patreon is, it is essentially like a subscription site for independent artists where you can subscribe for X number of dollars per month, which unlock special bonuses for you exclusively on a recurring monthly basis. They hand out lots of money to artists. They take a very small percentage of the fees to keep the site going. I've had a Patreon page before. It was a really good experience. And now they just raised $60 million to keep it going and expand it. The question, Gerald, is what is the status of crowdfunding today, and have we hit the bubble yet?
Well, I think something else needs to be adapted as far as crowdfunding is concerned, because I think the craze of, let's say, Kickstarter, GoFundMe, things of that nature has really hit, I don't want to say I'll hit a wall, but I really think it has hit a ceiling per se, or it is very near to it, because it seems like everyone that's out there has a GoFundMe, has a Kickstarter, has a Patreon, or Patreon, whatever you want to say, Patreon, and it has so many of these crowdfunding options. As a podcaster, I've been approached about it before. I've been asked to do a Patreon. I've tried to avoid it, because only the fact is that, yes, it does show that you have support for your whatever it is and passion that you want to pursue. But I don't know. I've just been kind of hesitant to do it. I'd like to see a little bit more correlation myself with a relationship with commercial entities myself that will hopefully help our shows and our projects and whatnot go further. But I can see why people go and choose to do that if they really want to go ahead and support it. But I think we really have hit a wall when it comes to crowdfunding, because it's become so overpopulated, in my opinion, and it doesn't have the freshness now. The projects that are on Kickstarter, I get press stuff from PR units and PR companies all the time saying, "Hey, support this Kickstarter. Hey, there's a Kickstarter account. Hey, tell everybody about this Kickstarter, GoFundMe or Patreon or whatnot." And it just seems like now it's just become oversaturated to the point where I think a lot of people are not going to fund in the future going forward projects that do deserve some love.
Yeah, I think we're definitely approaching a bubble if we haven't hit it. And the ingredients that used to be components to a successful campaign um, are almost standard things that you have to do now to even kind of get noticed and kind of move the needle just a little bit.
Which
Um,
surprises me that you say that because you have proven to be quite successful within the Kickstarter realm.
yeah, I've been a part of enough projects either as a creator or a collaborator, and I've raised almost $500,000 across those projects. And it's there's so much more onus on what you have to do to bring to the table now as a creator before you launch than ever. Like there used to be two kinds of people that needed a little bit of money to finish their project that was almost completely done, or people that were sitting on a couch pitching their idea, and not a lot of people in the middle. Now you almost have to have most of your project done, and it has to be really good, or you have to have at least half of it done to kind of gain buyer confidence, because there's just too much competition out there now. And as much as you can pitch on a couch and maybe hit a wider audience, because that thing that you're trying to do is a little less defined than seeing what the actual product is, there's not enough excitement in it. People want to be wowed. They want to have instant gratification. They want to see it easy. They want to buy into who you are and what you've done, and they want to see that track record where that money goes. And these are all hard things to do as somebody that's new. And when people that are new can't get into it, it gets harder. That bubble gets pushed with the same people that keep going back and back to the well to keep doing projects. And I'm one of those people. And you see how that space is tightening and tightening and closing and closing. And it is no longer, I think, that, oh, well, we could just do a Kickstarter and raise money, because you really have to do a lot more of the project work up front in order to even have a chance at getting your funds work, compared to before. It was, if you did work, you would probably just raise more money and not just your goal. So it's a scary thing, to be honest, in terms of raising money as a creator, because that option has almost disappeared by virtue of it existing.
It definitely is. It's just now it seems like an oversaturated market. And for someone who has reached the heights of success with Kickstarter, it's very telling when you now say it's a lot harder to go ahead and execute those projects than it once did.
It's not impossible. It just takes more and more dedication. And I consult with people all the time on a freelance basis, where they book one or three or five different sessions with me. And I usually cap it at five, because I don't want people to get in over their heads when they start realizing how much work there is. And every time they don't get it, or they just fail to see the amount of work that it takes now to make a difference, to compared to even like 3 or 4 years ago. You have to be that good, and your project has to be that unique, and it just doesn't there. So it surprises me that Patreon is raising $60 million, or has, and I want to see where they're going to go with that and what they plan to do in order to expand their fan base, or their user base, both in terms of creators and I guess you can call it just patrons, to their service. It'll be really interesting to see how they want to roll that out. I, for one, am very interested in perfecting the Patreon model. I have a few ideas to take advantage of it, but not every idea works for something that's a recurring purchase that requires you to constantly create new things. So, got a couple different ideas, and we'll see what I can kind of churn out for that.
Well, that's good. That's definitely looking forward to it. But yeah, because like I said, it's definitely a harder market than what you experienced even with projects like Nintendo Quest and whatnot. So it's definitely a different, evolving and changing market for you, especially in the world of crowdfunding. Indeed.
Here's a topic that everybody seems to be talking about with the release of the film Mother, and that is Aronofsky's F cinema score. Now, Gerald, I'm sure you have some thoughts on this. You and Josh must have talked about this already.
We actually talked about it off camera. We wanted to talk to see if there was a larger issue with Jennifer Lawrence's career as far as you seeing a projects that she's picking that are not exactly turning out to be the best in fruition. Although, like I said, she still is a name actress, but is her shine from the Hunger Games completely wearing off? I hope not, because I think she's an extremely talented actress. But there are some signs that, well, maybe a lot of people are giving her feedback for maybe some of her opinions or some of the things she said in public, or just basically they don't see her projects being worth the time, because in the days and ages where a name could sell a movie by itself, back in the days of the 90s, where even a Stallone and a Schwarzenegger, for example, or an Eastwood could sell basically a movie by themselves without even having a coherent plot or a really great story. These days and ages, people with the advent of DVD and streaming and all that, they don't need to go out to the box office as what we've reported in August being the worst box office month in 10 years. That a lot of people now want to see more out of it, and this movie actually garnered pretty good, pretty solid critical ratings on both Rotten Tomatoes and also Metacritic. They were showing a pretty good critical rating as far as overall, but to see that F cinema score tells me that it's just more like I think a position that they have most likely against her and the project she's choosing, or maybe the opinion she's having.
Well, I think the F cinema score definitely has to do with the type of film that it is. And I've talked to a few people, including our mutual friend, Mr. Glenn Stanway, who was not a big fan of it. And Aronofsky has come out and actually released a quote talking about the F cinema score. And this is the part I think that's interesting. For what it's worth, I think Jennifer Lawrence is just exercising some actor freedom after being tied up in a massive franchise like Hunger Games, being tied up in a franchise like X-Men. I think she does not want to necessarily just be part of that machine that makes money, that she actually wants to do something that's challenging, and she's earned the right, especially after,
Absolutely, and I don't
turd
disagree.
performance like American Hustle or other things that are a little bit lower but a little bit more interesting to an actor. I
And
think
I don't
she's still
disagree with
bankable.
that aspect either. So I think she's got the right to go ahead and spread those wings. And Darren Aronofsky, obviously he has a great deal of talent, and this movie actually on a critical basis did fairly well. And I love The Wrestler. I think that's one of the
Yep.
best movies that's come out within the past 15 years. But to see his talent and her talent being, I guess, treated like this maybe speaks of a movie that didn't connect well with audiences, because obviously the movie itself had some different things to say than maybe what the marketing spoke of as well.
Okay, so let me read this quote so that everybody can kind of get on the same page. And first of all, an F cinema score, for everybody that doesn't know, is the lowest kind of graded score that you can get, especially when it's part of test screenings. People were in the test screenings, they got an F cinema score. Aronofsky embraces it. Here's the full quote. What's interesting about that is, like, if you walk out of the movie, you're not going to give, how are you not going to give it an F? It's a punch. It's a total punch. And I realized that we were excited by that. We wanted to make it a punk movie and come at you. And the reason I wanted to come is because I was very sad and had a lot of anguish, and I wanted to express it. Filmmaking is such a hard journey. People are constantly saying no to you. And to wake up every morning and get out of bed to face all those no's, you have to be willing to really believe in something. And that's what I look for in my collaborators, and that's what I pitched the actors. I said, look, this isn't going to be a popularity contest. We're basically holding up a mirror to what's going on. All of us are doing this. But that final chapter hasn't been written, and hopefully things can change. And to go back, the fact is it's going down right now, and things are really falling apart in a way that's really scary. So, by his own admission, this is a film that's designed to make you feel like crap and wake you up, because that's what's going on in the world, according to him. The question I have for you, Gerald, what is the responsibility of a filmmaker? Is it to make a statement about what's going on in the world? Is it to have mindless entertainment? Like, what is the responsibility of a filmmaker? And at what point can this particular director ever get off the hook from not representing what's going on in reality if he feels so strong about this now? How come he hasn't done this before, and will he only continue to do this going forward?
Well, you said it, you're saying it yourself because, as a filmmaker yourself, you realize the importance and the love and the passion that you have when you're creating that film. And well, to give you an example, I was talking about how well it is done critically. The actual movie itself, according to critics, about those who actually watch movies and get paid to do it and get paid to comment on it for a living, that they, a lot of, in case of some of these critics, they go to school, they train, whatnot, what have you. They actually have given, as a combined collective effort, a better score with Mother than they have It. Yet It garnered an A cinema score as opposed to what Mother is doing, and obviously that will reflect in the final box office numbers. So it tells me that there is something deeper going on, whether fans just went there and just did not want to go ahead and understand what the film is all about. There's just some type of disconnect to me as far as in this presentation of this particular movie. But I think it just seems to be pointing to something a little bit deeper, with audiences that just chose to really not want to enjoy this film, because I cannot, if I'm going to watch it, I'm going to rent it probably when it comes out on home video, just to see if it truly is a film that I just cannot get.
I got to be honest. I think in this case, Aronofsky is like reaching way beyond the carrot that's just dangling in front of him. Usually, no matter what you try to do, your subconscious is affected by what's going on in the world events. So as you are being creative, that is feeding you when you start making decisions. Ergo, every time you make a film, it is reflective of that time. It is reflective of the society that you are in, and it will always be a commentary on what's going on in the world. Always. Let alone with a film that is heavily played for allegory like this one is. So I don't think that you necessarily have to be so literal to punch people in the face and just say that's what you have to do because it's your responsibility as a filmmaker to wake people up. That's going to always be there, and you might be wasting your time because in 6 months from now, that punch to the face is going to feel like just a flick to the ear because world events might change and render what you're saying, invisible, to be honest. Like, you're trying way too hard, I think, to make the kind of points that matter on a universal level that will resonate far longer. You bring up the wrestler. Now, that's a story that I think we can always look at about someone's self-worth. Are they going to give up? Are they not going to give up? At what point should they call it quits? At what point does passion lose its importance? And that resonates more today than what he's trying to say with this film, in my opinion, anyways.
No, I can't blame you a bit on that. And it just seems that you have these films that just do not connect with audiences every now and then, even though they may be better or not a good film, for better or worse. But it's so let's go take it in August. Logan Lucky, that was a very very well received film critically, but it didn't draw flies when it came to the box office concern. So a lot of people didn't have that connection with the film as well. So and then what was one of the top box office movies from that August? Hitman's Bodyguard, which obviously from a critical standpoint did not meet up to a lot of what these film critics wanted to see. But with the fans, they connected a little bit more on that basis. So it's kind of tricky when you're doing that balancing act I'm sure as a producer or director or whatnot, to try and create films that will resonate well with audiences. But when it all comes down to it, you got to do it for yourself, and you got to do it because you enjoy doing it. I'm sure that's what you say to yourself as you create all these wonderful projects of yours.
Aronofsky can make whatever films he definitely wants to make, but like he says, making films is a hard journey. There's a lot of people that say no, and for you to be so selfish and self-centered to have to make a film that gets your point across when the whole medium of film is designed to be put in front of an audience, it just seems backwards mentality to me. I think it seems almost contrary to the goal that you're trying to achieve. Um, he gets to make the choices he wants in life. It's not what I would do as a filmmaker. I have very different inherent beliefs about what my responsibilities are as someone who creates content and writes stories and is in the entertainment world, and we just differ like at this point where I thought, there's a lot of similarities and a lot of things I really liked about Aronofsky, but now there's clearly a divergent path. But maybe, when we look back on this, we will see what that is and what has happened with him and why there is such a difference. Moving along here, this was really interesting to me, and I don't know that it's bad or if it's good. It just really struck me as odd, and that's that Harley Quinn is taking over Batman Day. I don't know if you're aware of what Batman Day is, but this will be the fourth year that it's happened. The first one beginning in 2014, I think, where the DC Comics celebrated 75 years of Batman with essentially doing like a Batman Day or Batman Weekend. And every year since, they've kind of done a celebration. And Harley Quinn is basically gracing iconic Batman covers as free kind of giveaways from DC that are going to appear in different comic book stores. The question around this is, isn't that kind of missing the point about celebrating Batman every year to kind of focus on another character? And yeah, Harley Quinn is definitely tied to the Batman universe, but she has grown in such popularity that she has, her own comics, she has her own storylines, she has her own kind of cult following that she almost might rival the popularity of Batman.
At this point, I can say that's correct.
You know what I mean? So, like, why would you take away from your number one or number two kind of mascot for a comic book brand, Superman possibly being the other one for DC, to focus on Harley Quinn, who's doing well on her own? And the only thing I can think of is if Warner Brothers and DC is really just trying to push the marketing for that, Sirens of Gotham or whatever other movie stuff is in the works. But why would you take away from Batman on Batman Weekend? Why not do something really cool with Batman every year? You're going to have a big Bat announcement, make it about this, and let everybody else in the Bat universe react to that after the fact.
Well, I think it's just what you said, that people will seem in their minds at DC that they're going to get excited more for Gotham City Sirens or the love story that's now possibly in the works with Joker and Harley Quinn, creating a movie out of that. They are more interested in that than, let's say, Ben Affleck becoming the Batman in his own series of movies at this point in time. So I don't know. I think that's where DC's headed, and that's where DC's promoting, and they're just more interested in promoting that aspect of the DC universe than actually one of their traditional standbys that they've had and held so dear for such a long time.
It feels like a really big missed opportunity. And if DC is really going to continue doing Batman Day, I really think they should go all out and make BatCon, a convention dedicated to everything Batman. Let some big Batman announcement take the stage. If you want to do these Harley Quinn alternate covers, have them there. That's cool. You could do a lot of stuff. You could talk about all the different developments in the Batman universe across all different mediums, comic books, video games, movies, anything out there. But just keep it focused on Batman, because I think you take away from that. Again, it's like you're creating something counter to what you're trying to achieve. If you're trying to market Batman, then don't market Harley Quinn. I guess when you market Batman, you're marketing Harley Quinn anyways, but I don't think it works the other way around as well. I don't think. Anyway.
Well, but again, like I said, she's hot right now, so they're just going to be writing that until she's just another part of the DC universe.
The last bit of news that I thought was interesting, that piggybacks off some of our other discussions on the old cosmic crossfire. You're warming up to it. I can see it. Is Twitter is set to stream pre-game or pre-shows for Empire. So Empire, the breakout drama for the last couple of years, Twitter has signed on to stream a pre-show for it. And I wonder if this is embracing the second screen viewing habits that we've been seeing, especially with sports programming. Check this on your phone during halftime, or tweet this out during the game. Or is this increasing the importance of mobile as a destination and diminishing the need for traditional TV? If I'm watching the pre-show on my phone, Do I end up just watching the show on my phone at some point after, or am I really being asked to juggle two devices? What do you think
I
it is?
I think at some point in time it's going to evolve into watching your off your tablet, off your smartphone, what have you. And I think they're trying to cover all the bases. Apparently, it sounds like because I know a lot of events and whatnot, like esports. Esports has now. I've watched esports events on Twitter and watched the ongoing live action, and it's been quite a different experience in doing so. And I just think at this point in time that it looks more and more like they do want you to obviously to hold two devices and have two devices ready to go ahead and do that. But I think the future is going to be even more socially media conscious and aware. And I think traditional standards of broadcast television are like Toys R Us going to go by the wayside in the not too distant future.
But here's the thing. We have these glorious 50, 60, 70, 80-inch televisions in our house, right? How come Twitter isn't trying to make a play for that surface? Is it that Twitter and Facebook are too inherently personal and that it's a intimate connection with you and your account and what you're looking at, and it's voyeuristic and independent from what might be like a public display? Or is Twitter really missing the ball here, or Facebook for that matter, and not having a stronger integrated presence into our television devices so that you could have your Twitter feed on the bottom like a ticker tape or something else as you're watching these shows, especially if they're native to Twitter?
Well, I'll tell you what, right now with Twitter and Facebook, they've been around for a while. So they're trying to do what they can to evolve into that. Facebook is spending hundreds of millions of dollars over the next few years on specific live programming that will be, on their, universe. Like, for instance, as far as from a basketball standpoint, the Ball family is going to be having their basically their live, their show as far as put right on, as far as their unscripted show put right on the Facebook Live universe. It's shown through that way and emanating through that way, as opposed to traditional basketball or broadcast channels. And then you're going to be able to see this more and more often as far as going forward, where people will be focused more into Facebook on other advents as far as all these different avenues that Facebook is attempting to offer. But they are traditional standards now of social media, and they have been around now for 10 years. Let's give or take. And unless they evolve themselves, there's going to be a newer technology that's going to surpass them that people will latch onto pretty quickly if that's the case.
Yeah, I guess I wonder, how far away are we from like Facebook TV as an app? Will it be separate, or
You're
Twitter
going to have
for
it
that matter?
sooner rather than later, because I know they're spending a ton of money on that.
I just wonder what that's going to shake out like as I constantly look at the ever evolving landscape of entertainment options. Do we need more apps? What do we need? Where do we go from here? Really, everybody's creating new content, which is great. It gives a lot of content creators options, but if everybody's creating it, then who's sitting around to watch it?
Well, I hear you on that, but do you see Amazon spending a ton of money on new programming? Hulu also spending money on new programming. Also, as well, you have Facebook, like I said, spending a ton of money on new
And I get
programming.
all that, and I think like once you get out of like the group of three or four, that's when things get watered down. Like you have the big networks: ABC, NBC, Fox, CBS. Am I missing one? I think those are the four, right?
Yeah, ABC,
ABC,
CBS, NBC, and Fox.
Yeah, so those are the four. You don't see too many new networks coming out of there that aren't partnered with those networks in some way. CW would be the minor kind of exception. On the digital side, you got Netflix, Amazon, Hulu. Now you've got like 15 other streaming apps that are kind of underneath that doing original programming. Everything is going to get to be watered down. You want to watch these exclusive series, and hey, let them spend their money on this great content. It's great that it's out there, but not everybody's going to be able to afford to do it because they're already bought onto one of the other big four. So I think you're going to start again. You're trying to attract people, but because you're doing something that's exclusive to you, you're not going to get them because they're already looped into this system. You've lost.
Yeah.
You've got to, you'll basically, end up selling your syndication rights to one of the other four or whatever the existing loop is at the time. So I don't know that Facebook TV or Twitter TV is the way to go considering the other landscapes. I get why they want to do it because they have that distribution platform. People are already there. How do we keep them there? Here's the cool thing that you can only get here. It's why Apple and iTunes has worked so well. And that's why they want to go into creating their own TV stuff. And like we talked about last time, the James Bond rights, to be able to say, hey, exclusive to us, can't get it anywhere else. You can only buy the new Bond movie from us. You can only see it from us when we say. Makes a lot of sense. But when you start forcing consumers to go to a bunch of different places to get that content, that's when you have cord cutting all over again. I don't want to have to be at home at 8:30 to watch this thing. I want to watch it on my way and in the place that I want to watch it, whether it's on the bus, on my phone, or whether it's in my living room on my TV, when I decide I want to do that.
Well, I can tell you firsthand, one of the latest entities to come onto the market, Amazon, has their own now called Amazon Channels. And I just found out about it and I looked at it. And I'm like, oh, up to 100 channels you can do. You get a la carte. Everything's great. Then I looked at it right away and it's just, okay, HBO, Star, Showtime. And then after that, there's over 90 channels of self-created channels that are probably not existing anywhere else except for, just they were made up channels like a surfing channel, and there's just specific channels that are out there. So right now it doesn't look like a great deal, but in time, check back maybe 2-3 years down the line, and they will probably go ahead and get that type of quality channels that will buy into what they're selling. And if you can get that a la carte, because we're still waiting for that magical day when you can buy a la carte the channels that you want and be able to go ahead and for one price actually do it. They're still not quite there yet. They still are hesitant and reluctant to do that. But when you can, when that magical day comes, it's going to be a great day indeed, where you can personally pick all those channels that you want to see and only those channels and not get stuck with anything else.
Here's the problem. The TV and film industry, and I'm going to loop them together for the sake of what I'm trying to say, and you'll see why in a second, is creating faster than we can consume, and it's running into the same problem that the video game industry has. There's way too much content and not enough consumer time. It doesn't matter how many distributors there are, whether it's just Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, or the free-to-play options that exist on your mobile device. There's not enough hours in the day to consume the amount of content that's being created. So everybody's competing for that 1 to 3% of the pie. And that is a crappy, desperate position to be in as a distributor. But I get it as a distributor because, A, you don't have to take the risk on creating the project. You just have to identify which ones you might think work and basically market it and reap whatever rewards come with it. Sure, there's some upfront costs sometimes, but by and large, it's a choice that you don't have to make when there's this much good content out there.
Because technically, you could go on Twitch right now or Facebook Live and just continually run a stream and call it a Rob McCallum Films channel, correct?
Yeah, and our good friend Patrick Scott Patterson is essentially doing that on Twitch. He has a 24-hour Twitch stream that is nothing but stuff that he's been associated with, be it trailers, extended interviews, full-on movies and stuff, and it's just going around and round and round. And I can't say that I blame the guy, and he's just going to continually add to it as he's kind of a guy that's out there.
Well, that's a great thing to do. It's a great thing to see indeed, because you'll have nothing but 24 hours of Jay Bartlett, and who could ask for more, correct?
I don't think I need 24 hours of Jay. I don't think I need that.
Maybe he would disagree, but I don't know.
Well, he might, but I have enough raw footage of Jay to last me a lifetime.
Fair enough, indeed. Well, those are some great subjects to talk about. If you have any questions in regards to what we talked about on today's episode of the Cosmic Crossfire, please share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanity Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. And Rob, as always, it's always been a great pleasure having you on the Cosmic Crossfire, as it were. And I just truly appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. And I look forward to talking to you next week, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we're on schedule to do that. And maybe then we can talk about this mysterious project that we just that I threw up a poster for that you didn't ask me about this time. So there you go.
Yeah, exactly.
People have to wait now.
Just I like my certain things now and then that relates to kind of like little marionettes and out there, la, 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 la. But just giving hints
If
out there.
people could only see what this looks like.
Yes, I know, I know. Tell me about it. But
Uh-huh.
there's some great projects that he did subtly announce on his, Rob McCallum Films Facebook page and all the great stuff that's going on there. But you've got great stuff going on. What is coming up with the Kitty movie? You have the premiere and all that, but and also as well the Masters of the Universe, Powers of Grayskull, and all that. What is going on with all the great things at Rob McCallum Films?
Well, the Kitty documentary, Kitty Origins and Evolutions, actually has a little bit of new news. It seems that we've been able to strike a deal for not only domestic but international distribution as well for the doc, which is really exciting. And I believe there might even be a small little music tie-in for the band, because I don't know enough about it, I can't quite say yet. But focusing on the documentary, it looks like we have international representation now, which is always a nice big win as a filmmaker when you set out to make a film on spec, putting essentially, your money before any deals are done to come out at the end of it and say, yes, this will be available in all markets around the world now, which is really exciting. And, we march closer and closer to our world premiere in London, Ontario, Canada on October 27th. And then the following night on October 28th, I believe we'll be screening at the Forest City Film Festival here in town as well. And it's just getting really exciting to see everything come together. The last few nights I've been listening to the latest mixes of our 5.1 audio pass for it, which is really great to hear heavy metal and surround sound. So that's pretty cool, to be honest. It's an interesting process when you're an editor and director and writer as well. And then you get to hand the film off to like a seasoned audio pro like John McCarthy, who's done all my films with me on an audio level, and it makes it better instantly the second he starts touching it. So it's really great. And as far as Power of Grayskull, Definitive History of He-Man and the Masters Universe, we continue to shop it. I know Randall and the guys are also putting together the finishing touches on a few other projects that are pop culture related. And so as all these projects get finished up with them, more and more sales talks happen and more options for that film come out as well.
Oh, that's awesome to hear. Plus, there's so much more. If you want to check out Rob McCallum Films, the Facebook page, sign up, log in, follow, and then you'll be able to go ahead and get all the latest news from Rob McCallum Films, including some projects that like I said, he's got coming up as far as Indeed. And I will ask him a little bit more detail about the kind of project he alluded to earlier this week. I'm going to talk to him on our next time we're together on the Cosmic Crossfire to ask him a little bit more if he can elaborate more in detail on that as well. So,
well, I'll try to think of some answers and decide what I can say and what I can't say. Hopefully I should have more information by then too. And I promise people that go to robmccallumfilms.com, you will see some updates on the website at some point, especially as the Kitty and He-Man docs get kind of wrapped up and I can dig back into box art.
And absolutely. And don't forget your wonderful work with Tiny Titan Studios as well, correct?
That's right. Tiny Titan keeps going strong, and new updates for Dash Quest and Tiny Rails are out this week. So check your devices and update and get that new gear, get those new trains, and keep that adventure alive.
Absolutely, because it's a lot of great work that both you, Glenn, and the entire team at Tiny Titan Studios do, and just so appreciative of that. Because tell you what, like I said, Dash Quest is a great game, and also as well, Tiny Rails is a lot of fun indeed. So, well, Rob, as always, truly appreciate. You were saying?
I was saying thank you. I appreciate that.
No worries. I'm just, like I said, it's really cool, especially when I see my daughter playing Tiny Rails, and she really gets fun out of it. And then I come in and sit in and go for a little while myself on it. It just is truly a great experience indeed.
Well, we will have a Steam update soon if she's enjoying it on Steam. So get ready for that. It includes South America and the fun prospect of having to build stations and purchase rail in order to lay some new ground, so to speak.
Oh, that's awesome indeed. That's awesome indeed. So, and I can't wait for that and so much more when it comes to everything that Tiny Titan Studios is doing and everything that Rob McCallum is doing in the world of Rob McCallum films. Rob, as
Cool.
always, appreciate it, my friend.
Cool. Thanks so much.
Thank you for being part of the Cosmic Crossfire and part of the pop culture cosmos.
Way too late for that. It's too late for that.
Fair enough indeed.